Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stacy. This is going to be a video all about the books that have couples or romance in them that I really love. I wouldn't say I'm a romance reader in general, but I don't dislike romance at all. If it's in the book and if it makes sense, I love romance, but I don't generally go hunting out romance books just for the romance, if that makes sense. But I do have some books that have some love stories in them that I just adore, and I thought with Valentine's Day coming up that I would talk about these books. So let's jump right in. The first one I'm going to talk about is A Light on the Hill by Connilyn Cossette. That is book one in the Cities of Refuge series. This book is set during biblical times, during the time when the Hebrews came back to the promised land, and the different cities are getting set up, and there are specific cities that are created for people who are basically in trouble with the law. If you do something wrong by accident, basically you would run towards one of these cities, and if you made it there, they would give you refuge while you are awaiting trial. So this book takes place then, but it is not about any specific biblical people. These are made up characters for this story, and the main character ends up doing something by accident, and she has to go on the run and is trying to make it to one of the cities of refuge, and a relative of the person who was wronged is kind of going after her. So this book is very fast-paced, full of excitement, full of craziness. It's actually the first Christian fiction book that I read as a Christian, because I read the Left Behind books many years ago, but I did not read them as a Christian. So yeah, I have very fond memories of this book, and the love story in this book is gorgeous. I love it so much. Next one I want to talk about is a Tessa Afshar book. This one again is set during biblical times. It's during the time featuring Nehemiah. He is briefly mentioned in this book, but the book is not about him. And this book is about a woman who is a scribe in Babylon. I want to say they're in Babylon. And the relationship has to do with an arranged marriage. I love arranged marriage and marriages of convenience, things like that. And the way that these two people come together and end up working through all the initial problems that they have and end up having this great love story. I thought it was beautiful. Highly recommend it. Next one is the Canadian West series by Janette Oak. This one is historical fiction, takes place in the wilderness of Canada, and it is about a woman named Elizabeth and a Mountie named Wen, I think was his name. And you follow from where they meet and they date and they get married, and the books progress through their life and their children. They go through some really awful things because of the time and the place that they are living, and their faith gets them through everything. So their relationship really is built on their love and faith of God, and it's just so beautiful. So I think there's a TV show for this as well. If you don't want to read the books, you could probably watch the show. But yeah, I loved them. One I want to talk about is Flights of Fancy by Jen Turano. This is also historical Christian fiction. This is about a woman who, I think she was supposed to marry a man that she didn't want to marry. She's rich, and she runs away to kind of this nowhere town in Pennsylvania and gets herself hired as like a maid caretaker type of person for another person who's rich, but he doesn't know that she's rich, so she's kind of pretending to play this part. And this book is hysterical. This book had me laughing out loud. It's one of the funniest books I've ever read. All of the silly things that she gets up to while she's trying to figure out how to be a maid, because she doesn't know how to take care of anything. She wasn't raised that way. But it's one of those stories where you get to watch their relationship build, and he starts to fall in love with her for her, like her genuine personality and how hard she tries and how silly she is. And I just think they are the sweetest couple ever. Next one I want to talk about is The Red Canary by Rachel Scott McDaniel. Yeah, McDaniel. This one takes place in the 1920s in Pittsburgh, and it's about this woman who works in a speakeasy, and she witnesses a murder. And so she basically gets put into a sort of witness protection program, and a cop is assigned to her to stay with her and keep her safe. And while they are spending all of this time alone together, a relationship builds. She starts out not really having faith in the beginning, but through all the things that she goes through, she gains faith, and it's lovely. Their story is lovely. The way everything plays out is just perfect. So yeah, I love that one also. Another one I want to mention is The Gilded Lady by Elizabeth Camden. This is book 2 in a trilogy. I can't think of the name of the trilogy, but the first one is The Spice King. This is about the Spice King's sister. So Caroline works at the White House. She helps the First Lady. I can't remember which First Lady it was, but she helps the First Lady in all things like social. She helps her deal with going to tea parties and how to dress and how to talk to people. So while she is working in the White House, a man gets hired to protect the president. He's basically the very first kind of Secret Service agent. And I love at the beginning, Caroline and I think his name was Nathaniel, they have a very kind of snarky relationship because they are both very professional and take what they do very seriously, and kind of what their jobs are makes them have to clash with each other. But through all that, they grow to have great love for each other, and I think their story is beautiful. Another one I want to talk about is Sons of Blackbird Mountain by Joann Bischoff. This one I read not too long ago, and it takes place in Western Virginia. It's about a family. I think there's 3 boys and their aunt. The aunt recently passes away. The 3 boys, their cousin who lives in Scandinavia, the cousin dies, and his wife comes to stay with I'm saying boys, but they're grown men. She comes to stay with the men and help them at their apple orchard. And a relationship develops between her and one of the men. His name is Thor. How cool is that? And Thor is deaf. He also is an alcoholic, and when she comes, he kind of immediately falls in love with her. It's like love at first sight, and he realizes how much he needs to change and fix things within his life and get right with God. This story is so beautifully done, so full of faith. Their love story just had me in tears. It was so, so lovely. The last one I'm going to mention is called The Land Beneath Us by Sara Sundin. I just finished this book. It's my first Sara Sundin book I've ever read, and I will definitely be reading more of her books. All the hype that she gets on BookTube is totally worth it. Everybody that reads her books loves them. So this book takes place in mostly Tennessee during World War II, and it's about a man who is training to be an Army Ranger, and the girl is an orphan who goes to work at the base where he's at to become a librarian. Anyway, one night she gets physically assaulted on base, and the man rescues her, and he ends up marrying her. They were not in love with each other, but they were friends, and he is a very stand-up guy, and he wanted to take care of her. So they get married with the expectation that, you know, they're not in love and they're not really husband and wife, but they're going to pretend to be. And then he gets sent to war. And while he's at war, they end up writing each other all of these letters and getting to really know each other and falling in love. It's just so lovely. And I know I'm describing all these books as lovely, but they just are. So yeah, I thought their story, their growth from how they started to where they ended was so beautiful. So anyway, those are all the books that I'm going to talk about in this video. There are other books out there that have love stories that I loved, but I think these were my favorites. If you have a particular book that you love for the love story, let me know what that is down below. I'd love to know. Anyway, I hope you guys have a fabulous day, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.